So good evening, everyone. This is our 7th session in the Self-Transformation course, which is part 4 of Buddha Yoga, which is Bhakti Yoga. So we'll do a recap of last week's session, which was Dhyana Yoga or meditation. So Dhyana Yoga or meditation takes into account Patanjali's last 3 limbs of yoga: concentration, dharana, meditation, dhyana, and samadhi, unity. And he called that total attention, where all 3 are practiced at the same time, which enables us to have a deeper perception of reality and experience that unity that, as Theosophy points to, underlies all of the universe and all of creation. And Ravi Ravindra said Dhyana Yoga is the uninterrupted flow of awareness towards the object of attention. So there is the focus, solely being at one with a particular object of focus. We also looked at some general instruction on meditation. So in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 6, the general guidelines given in terms of being relaxed, not being able to be disturbed, going within, in contrast to more in-depth instruction, which really can't be given, because at the stage when we are able to meditate properly, after we've done all the preliminaries in terms of having control of our mind, our emotions, and our ethics, having an ethical life, those inner states of awareness are where you're one with the higher self or the divine or the master in consciousness. And Jeffrey Hodson gave some guidance in terms of his little booklet on meditation called The Yoga of Light, which is, again, a method for going within and coming without in a structured way, which with practice helps you open up that consciousness and awareness of a deeper realization of unity. And Ravi Ravindra said conscience is related with higher feelings and consciousness with higher intelligence. So the whole emphasis of our whole self-transformation course, when we get to be able to do meditation, is integrated approach. So having conscience, being clear about what we have to do, how we have to do it, helps us when we come to meditate, because everything is corresponding and complementary. So that was meditation last week. Okay. Now, there is a book, Christian mysticism, and it was written in the latter half of the 14th century, but they don't know who by. It's called The Cloud of Unknowing. Now, Ravi Ravindra said all Christians should read this, the Gospel of John, and the letters to the Romans. And I've got some excerpts, and we'll have a focus on the cloud of unknowing, because Ravi said it's quite mystical. So in terms of Bhakti Yoga and love, there's only one thing we need to really remember, and that is we're all one. That we're part of Brahman, and that Krishna exists, and we are part of him or that, it, and we're under its gaze. So our spiritual practice is remembrance of that, because we all know how we get sidetracked, and what we've covered in the last 6 sessions shows us how we get sidetracked, how we think we're separate. But really, if we keep being focused that we're all one on devotion, having an open heart and mind, then that's all we need to, that is a very good practice. And Ramana Maharshi last week, he mentioned that self-surrender to the one. So the cloud of unknowing talks about 2 clouds, one above and one below, or atmospheres of being, and they are the cloud of forgetting, which is setting aside the self, what we think we are, my ego, my self-interest, versus the cloud of unknowing, which is a domain above us, which needs penetrating to find the one or God, which is beyond it. So the cloud of forgetting relates to Prakriti, or the aspects of nature. Remember, we talked about the gunas, they operate in the field of nature, materiality, that has its place, but it's not our primary focus, it's not us. So with the cloud of forgetting, can we realize that nature has its place, and I put everything that's not really necessary, it's going to inhibit me from having a deeper perception that I'm separate. So we put all that, the suggestion is in this text, put all that in the cloud of forgetting, that which is coarse and subtle, the domain of self-forgetfulness. And our focus then is on piercing the cloud of unknowing to find out what is true and real, to come to God. And an attitude of innocence here is required. And Krishnamurti talked a lot about having that state of innocence and open mind and awareness. And even HPB in the Golden Steeds talks about an open mind, a pure heart, a clean life. So these attributes, which relate to the earlier practices around karma yoga and jnana yoga, Patanjali's first 5 limbs of yoga, niyamas and the niyamas, observances, and what we have to put aside, ethical living, etc. All of that helps us to pierce beyond the cloud of unknowing, to have a more innocent and open attitude. Because the whole process and what we've got from these 3 texts is an integrated approach. It's an integrated way of living, rather than emphasizing one particular component of a particular spiritual practice, meditation or whatever it might be. Everything is related and supporting each component. So we have then the focus on, we talked about previously, vairagya, dispassion, and abhyasa, practice. So it's practice and dispassion. Ramana Maharshi talked about it. Patanjali talks about it. The Bhagavad Gita talks about it. So there's this shift in how we live in our daily life, what energy, where we give our energy. And it relates again to the cloud of unknowing in terms of having a deeper perception. So being detached and putting everything that is not relevant into the cloud of forgetting is what we need to focus on. But at the same time, we can't know what's beyond the cloud of unknowing because it's beyond us. And letting go and putting everything that isn't holistic, that is focused on self-interest, into the cloud of forgetting, then we can be drawn to Krishna. So Arjuna is Bhakti. He, in the Bhagavad Gita, he is letting something unfold that is within him prior to all of what, because essentially we've had karma yoga, jnana yoga, meditation, dhyana yoga, and now we get to bhakti yoga. So without having that integration first, we can't really be in a state of unity or love or devotion, because we are still in the way. We've got ourselves out of the way through all those preliminary practices. And vairagya, being dispassionate, is what Patanjali says is the higher vairagya rises from the vision of the transcendent being, or Purusha, which leads to the cessation of the cravings of the world. So when we focus on the higher, the lower falls away naturally. So that again focuses on our practice and our dispassion. Focus on what is high, be dispassionate about what is low, and there'll be a transformation. So Rada Bernier, our previous international president, told Pablo Senda, who was a young theosophist in Argentina, he's about mid-40s now, and he's a well-known theosophist. He's written a lot of books and stuff. You can find him online. He works in Crotona in the US. She said to him, don't fight the old, build the new. So with practice and dispassion, we're not fighting, trying to get rid of the old. It'll fall away naturally if we focus our energy on building the new, on our practice, and just being dispassionate, if you like, putting everything that is of self-interest into the cloud of forgetting. So in doing that, something else draws us in. I mean, we keep coming here as a group together to search, to inquire, we keep reading in our own quiet time. There's something that is drawing us within. And Tanjali calls this Ishvara Pranidhana, or surrender to God, all under the canopy of discernment or viveka. So there's an awareness of what we're not, and focusing on what we are, putting that aside, something else naturally arises. And this cultivates finer and finer attention, because you can't put 100 watts, if Brett was here, he's an electrician by trade, you can't put 100 watts through a 20-watt bulb, okay? It's just not possible. And remember what Ravi said earlier in the course, it's all very well to want the truth, but you have to be able to withstand the truth. So the body needs to be transformed to be able to have a finer and finer receptivity. The vehicle needs to be able to be tuned so it can perceive something of a subtler nature. So the cloud of unknowing is focusing on this. So a more conscious awareness of what's happening within our lives results in having a developed conscience, which enabled us to participate more and more in the real. So there is a deeper and deeper awareness. And this can only happen in love. And love happens in various degrees. In our human relationships, we have love, wives and husbands, partners, whatever it might be. There are degrees of openness and sacredness. And ultimately, when we have that experience of unity between ourselves, divine, each other, then there is that subtler and subtler awareness and refinement of the body. So after chapter 6, which is where Bhakti Yoga is first introduced in the Bhagavad Gita, then there is emphasis more and more on love in the Gita. So parts of the Gita after chapter 6 again relate to deeper and deeper states of awareness of Arjuna and of ourselves in terms of awakening. So you think about in the Christian tradition, you have the birth, the baptism, the transfiguration, crucifixion, the ascension, and these have the analogous states in Hinduism and Buddhism. They all represent deeper and deeper states of awareness and refinement, which is ultimately love. And I've mentioned a couple of weeks ago, and even like Ravi Ravindra and Krishnamurti, they went through their own processes. Maharshi was silent for many, many years, bringing down that awareness into his body to be able to stand and express what he needed to express in silence, then later in words, in the case of Ramana Maharshi. So there's that shift in awareness, which comes from that sense of unity, to greater and greater degrees of unity. So again, there's an emphasis here on love and devotion from the Bhagavad Gita. As the old saying is, we are what we eat, or you are the company you keep. You put your energy in this direction, it will have consequences. So if you're focusing on self-interest, being vile and deluded, etc., as Krishna is pointing out there, the result is that we're not really going to have any deeper connection with the one, the divine. Whereas if we focus, and there are degrees of focus, he mentions 4 kinds of people who are in distress, those who seek worldly goods, those who seek knowledge, and those who are wise. Again, you see You may pray to God to earn $1 million. That's great. You've got God in your mind, but really, you're really going to have a deeper connection. Maybe, maybe not. So he makes the point in the latter part of these verses 17, 18, and 19 that those who are wholly devoted and are wise and focusing on the self, the one, Krishna, and the divine, will have the consequent outcome, which is that degree of unity in consciousness. I read many years ago by H.P.B. She talked about Krishna's rationale. And I saw that before I read the Gita, and remember, the Bhagavad Gita was H.P.B.'s favorite book. So she said, think constantly of me, depend on me alone, and thou shalt surely come to me. And this is what Krishna is saying here as well. So thinking about the divine, living one's life according to that, then obviously the result was going to be a deeper awareness and connection with the one. You know, energy follows thought, as it were. And from the Upanishads, there's only the one, the divine. The self is Brahman, and that's all there is. So we have a choice, really, about how we live. We can be conscious and serve the divine, or we can be an unconscious slave and serve our own self-interest. And that's, in the Christian tradition, that's the symbol of the cross. At any particular moment, any point in time, we have a choice of how we behave. We can stay at the horizontal level of self-interest, or be yoked up the vertical axis of being and have a deeper perception. So free will, in one sense, humans have that. But here's the interesting analogy I think about. You know, those little dogs, they've got those little leads, they're skinny little dogs. They go out and then they come back. But it's like the owner still owns the dog. It can run off a little bit, but it has to go in a certain direction. So we have some degree of free will like that dog early on in our evolution, as it were. But as we have deeper and deeper states of awareness and connection with the one, that lead gets tighter and tighter. And ultimately we have no more will. There's only thy will be done. The one. And this is what, you know, Christ had at the end of the gospel, his sacrifice. He had to do the Father's work. I and my Father are one. I will do thy will. Again, Arjuna, at the end of the Krishna's teachings, tells him, you've heard what I've said, now do as you please. And there's only one way he can act, which is to do the divine will. So he's been transformed. So ultimately, there's no more free reign at the end of the line. But then that's happiness, the peace that passes all understanding. So again, it comes down to how conscious we are. And we want to undertake a sense of sacrifice, yajna karma, which we touched on earlier in the course. So Arjuna has to become a bhakta, a devotee of Krishna, and Ravi is emphasizing the fact that this is from top down, not from the bottom up. So the divine, something within us, is drawing us within, it's guiding us, pulling us ever closer to itself. And true love, true bhakti is selfless. It expects nothing in return. And if we've done a lot of the preliminary work in terms of our meditation, having a deeper insight with our jnana yoga and our karma yoga, integrating ourselves, then we are, insight favors the prepared, as Ravi said. So all of that practice allows us to have a greater opportunity of having that experience of love and selflessness. And when we do, we actually get it because there's no more self-interest there. It comes as a natural result of our previous practice. But it's all integrated nonetheless, because Buddha Yoga is a combination of all four yogas that we've looked at. And this is the last of them tonight. So it's about being mindful on a daily basis. Like Sushma will talk in the next 2 or 3 weeks on her pilgrimage in India, and it's just totally devotion. Indian spirituality is full of devotion. Tonight before I came in, she was watching Sadhguru, famous sage in India. He's got this all-night concert going on, focusing on Ganesha, and it's an all-night concert, and it's all devotional music, but it's wrapped up a bit. It's a bit funky now. So she was watching that live when I left. So she's just come back from all of this. So she'll be able to, again, share with you her experience, because she's been on a 17, 18-day walk. 240 miles or something, in a devotional setting, chanting, singing, everything. So Krishna is advising that awareness, that devotion is required in relation to everything else with our practice, our meditation, having a deeper insight in our service and karma yoga. So this is the point I was saying before about, I skipped ahead. I jumped ahead. I talked about this slide previously about HPB. Fix your mind on me, be my lover and worshipper, sacrifice to me, bow to me. Having thus disciplined yourself and having me as your supreme goal, you will surely come to me. So that is Krishna's rationale, which HPB I read many years before I come across the Gita. And the more you give, the more it sucks you in. You can't escape. Like, I can't leave this place. There's no way. It'd be like a super sin if I walked away from this place, because I'm here. I've been here for 34 years. This body, not me, of course, because that's all just ego, but at the same time, something keeps me here. Something draws me here, and to share what I know, what's come through me. So if we start on this journey, and if we're totally devoted and sincere, things are going to change, things are going to happen, and it'll change our whole life. For those of you who've been here all your life, those who are starting at your life, I can say it's great fun. So again, we have it in the Christian tradition. So the parable of the sheep and the shepherd, it symbolizes that inner calling for the one, symbolized by the sheep. If they listen to their shepherd, the inner self, the one, then they shall never perish. So as John says, I and my Father are one. This is a very, very high state of awareness and love and devotion, because it's like Ramana Maharshi, when he said, there are no others, I and my Father are one. It's that very deep, deep, high level of awareness of those sages. And if we can do that at whatever level we're at, it'll draw us deeper, and we'll always be in connection with something more sacred than ourselves. So again, it comes down to how we live. So in the Gospel of John, chapter 15, the Christ is advising, if you follow my commandments, keep my commandments, you will have the results, consequential results, that you will dwell in me as I dwell in the Father. So again, it's down to how we live, the choices we make, the people we hang out with, whatever we do, all affects our state of awareness, and that relates to the devotion component of Bhakti Yoga. So again, in the cloud of unknowing, there's an emphasis on thought. And, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita earlier, we covered earlier in the sessions, talks about the mind and how it's hard to still, but through practice and dispassion can be. But then there's something else when the mind starts to still, if you like, it comes up, and it's something totally different to thought, and thought cannot comprehend the one. So these are a couple of quotes here from the Cloud of Unknowing, encouraging us to go within and putting aside thought, obviously, because what is rational has its place, it's fine, but there's something else within us that requires a different approach. So the heart and devotion and love. So in the human sevenfold framework of theosophy, which we've touched on, I think we looked at it last week as well, and earlier in the course, you have the atmic, which corresponds to the physical level. You have your intuition or buddhi that corresponds to the emotions, and your higher mind corresponds to the lower mind. So here we're having buddhi or intuition corresponding to love and emotion at this lower level. So real love is tapping into and corresponding to intuition. And remember, intuition is the link between the soul and self, the one, or Krishna, or the divine. So thought has its place, but the heart and intuition also has its place. And to truly love is to put aside the mind and go beyond it and experience something else in the heart. So we're encouraged in the Cloud of Unknowing to pierce the cloud of unknowing and go beyond to find what is real and true, to find God or the one. So, yeah, something is drawing us. We don't know what it is. So Krishna advises here from chapter 6, we have to focus, have faith and respect for me, worship. And this is what he considers a Buddhi yogi. So having that awareness, that focus, that emphasis on love and worship of him, of everything is the one, which corresponds to how we live and practice our daily life, then Krishna says we're a Buddhi yogi. So in this whole last 4 sessions on Buddhi yoga, a Buddhi yogi is engaging correctly, acting correctly in karma yoga, has a deeper insight, meditation, and has an open heart and loves. So all of that combined, as Krishna is saying, is a Buddhi yogi. And Ravi says, love for God or Krishna is a love for something we do not know and cannot know, but we are drawn to. This is true for us all at all levels of love. We do not know rationally why we love. So, yeah, I have shed tears in this organization for those who I'm helping, for those I continue to help, and I feel for everyone. Because for me, I've had lots of, if you like, inspiration and guidance from those who've gone ahead of me, who are now past. So as Meister Eckhart said, what you receive in contemplation, you give out in love. So what you receive from each other, from your own insights, you give out in love. And the heart has reasons for, why it does not know, which reason does not know. So it is a sacred experience. You all know what it's like to be here regularly, what this place is about, and the energy that is here in this lodge. And we're all connected around the world. And as the Mahatma said, where 2 or 3 are gathered in thy name, Theosophical Society will always continue. So this work of Buddhi yoga, of having an open heart, being devoted, things will naturally flow if we're integrated, and all of that combined shows itself in our work and in the lodge. And yeah, you meet, I mean, it's just, I can't really say much more. It's just, comes out of you. So it's beyond thought, really. Something else comes and you know that it's real, even though you may not be able to define it. And these are my mentors, Helen and Conrad Jameson, who have passed away. Conrad died in Adyar, which was very great karma. And I learned so much from those two souls. So that was in 2008, in January 2008. And that was the last time I saw him physically. And I was, to be honest, I was shedding tears when I left because I knew I wouldn't see him again physically. And so it turned out. He passed away a couple of years later. I'd written to him and stuff. But now that quote there from the Upanishad, Helen and Conrad told me that in the first 2 or 3 years of my membership of the TS, when I was you guys' age, Blake and Ali, he said, not for the love of the wife or the husband is the wife or husband dear, but verily for the love of the self is the wife and husband dear. So this applies to everything and anyone. So real love is seeing the one in all of us. Because the bodies come and go, personalities come and go. What is real? What carries on? So this relates again to those deepening degrees that the initiate experiences and changes in states of consciousness of having or being open to more and more levels of love. And getting to the point where I and my Father are one and there are no others. So our practice on a daily basis is to see the self in all of us, and that's the real test. So Helen and Conrad were they were great theosophists, great people. They were real. They taught me all the stuff. What I know, it's because of them, and others as well. And as Krishna says here, one who expects nothing, who is pure, capable, unattached, free from anxiety, who has given up all self-initiated undertakings, such a one is my devotee and is dear to me. So this is the quest, I guess, the challenge, what's put before us in all of our theosophical teachings. In all the traditions, Christianity was a religion of love. I said earlier in the course, the disciples had greater challenges of loving each other as Christ had loved them, loving their neighbors, loving their enemies. All of these were different degrees of love and capacity to love. So ultimately you get to the point where we can love for the self and see something deeper, that we're all part of the one life. So that's essentially all I formally have to present on Bhakti Yoga. I do miss them, and I think of them. So I have some questions and discussion. We don't have to say anything, we just be. It's nice. Thanks, Dean. everyone online. There's just a nice energy in the lodge, I have to say. It's not me, it's them. Yeah, it's nice. I mean, we're all in it together. It's lovely. Someone's got something on the chat. We'll have a look at that.
I could be completely mistaken in my interpretation of but it comes in there's a lot of like dichotomies, that is it. You have to know as we know everything breaks in control to fully understand what the opposite of that is. And like with nature, sort of knowledge and sort of knowledge to materialize to get to a state where it's not a bit physical, and I'm wondering like how much those binaries experience something so you can experience its opposite.
Okay, so Phil's asking about the binaries and how much they matter, the opposites. They help you to go beyond the opposites. I mean, in the Upanishads, I don't know which one, I can't remember, but I had it earlier in the course. We need the mind to go beyond the mind. So nature, Prakriti, has its place, the body has its place, but we need it, ironically, paradoxically, the manifestation, the incarnation is required to enable us to go beyond the incarnation. So I can't say as to why the divine did it that way, but Jeffrey Hodson said, which Bill told me many years ago, he said there's a movement from unconscious to conscious perfection. So for whatever reason, we're unconscious of our latent divinity, and the manifestation or the incarnation enables us to have conscious awareness of that latent divinity. So it's a paradox. And in The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman, he talked about paradox as one of the laws of nature in there as well. So it's here, it's necessary, and see it as such, and don't write a thesis on the whole or get into a big philosophical debate about it, because the philosophers really driven themselves crazy over the years trying to do that. So that's my advice, Phil. Don't go too much into it. See it for what it is and go beyond it. Yeah. Oh, Ganeshi, go.
Oh, thank you, Simon. Sorry, just hold on. Sorry. Sorry, are you able to hear me?
Yes, go. We're okay.
Yep. Okay. Just about the binary, just a thought to share with you all. See, we are talking about opposites, hot and cold, light and dark.
Well, there's the opposites. He was here and now he's not. But he'll be back, no doubt. I mean, you've got to have a good sense of humor, right? I really don't have anything more to say. It's quite fascinating.
Oh, it's back.
See, you were binary opposites, Ganeshi. You were here, then you're not, now you're back. Okay, we'll come back to you then if you want, and you can go, Esther.
I'll let Ganesh.
Sorry, actually, oh my God. Oh, my speaker is not working.
Okay, you go, Esther. Put something in the chat, Ganeshi, and I'll read it out.
Oh, okay. I was just thinking while Ganeshi was away, I just started to think about binaries and hot and cold, and we wouldn't know one. I think it's the nature of things. We know the other from the other. So the binary idea of it, we wouldn't know what hot is if we didn't understand cold. So we know the other from having that binary perception. I was just thinking that one needs the other.
No, absolutely. This is the whole point. I think in terms of the incarnation, you have those opposites in manifestation. How can we know the one without the other? It's like, you're right, absolutely. Or else there's no point of it all, because there's no contrast. This is how we grow, through contrast and struggle. And, you know, Madame de Salzman talks a lot about in these texts, particularly in the Ravi's commentary on the Gospel, on the Yoga Sutras and the Gita. He refers to Madame de Salzman a lot and her emphasis on struggle and the relevance and importance of struggle that enables us to awake and grow. And if you think about nature, like I said before, caterpillar coming out of the cocoon, its wings need to struggle for them to actually develop so it can fly. So absolutely, we're here. The incarnation is very, very important, because death doesn't change one's character, as we have discussed. It's here in incarnation, in the body where the work is done, nowhere else. Now, you might sit back and have a bit of reflection in the after-death state on what you've done, what you studied, but ultimately the work is done here. Okay, Ganeshi.
I'm sorry. First and foremost, my apologies. Okay, I think my computer has been playing up. What I was trying to say was, one of the views that has been expressed when you talk about hot and cold, light and darkness, let us just take, for example, hot and cold. There is actually, when the temperature is above a particular point, it is heat. When it goes below zero, it is cold. So the coldness can be looked at the lack of heat, rather than it is the two different things as a binary position. Same thing as light and dark. Okay, when you go below a particular level, it is darkness. So it is only the absence of light or the presence of light. So when it is darkness, it is whether it is 100%, 200%, whatever it is, you can't say it. So it can say it's only, similarly, the good and bad, good and evil also, you can look at it, good and the lack of goodness. Okay, this is what J. Krishnamurti has been talking about. See, we are all, if we are divine spark, it is only goodness. In our manifested thing, it is the lack of goodness. That is what Buddha said, don't do evil, try to do good. And Krishnamurti, J. Krishnamurti always has been telling about, no, don't try to be good. Don't try to be something, because you are already good. Try to realize it and express more of the goodness which is within you. This is just a thought. People could think about it. So there is not a question of two binary things. Okay, these are not polar opposites, but it is the lack of something and the presence of something. Thank you for your patience, and think about it.
Yeah, I mean, great. I'll come to you in a moment, Chris. So this is exactly what we've had for the last few sessions in in terms of practice and dispassion. Abhyasa and Vairagya. There's those opposites. And it's always focused on one and detached from the other. So absolutely, Ganeshi. All right. Chris.
Yes, listening to Ganesh then, I was thinking about how often we can take these profound truths that you've been talking about tonight and bring them right down to quite a practical level of application in our day-to-day lives. And what Ganesh was talking about now made me think of when we speak of focusing on the glass half full rather than the glass half empty. And when you were talking before, Simon, and we read that bit that said how much more easily we can detach from something if instead we are very attached to something that is superior to that. And it made me think about in everyday life, if we dwell on the negatives that are there, we actually energize them. We keep them in manifestation by doing that. One way of putting it is we get what we resist. And so taking that same higher wisdom, if we dwell on the positives instead, we strengthen the manifestation of that. So I just think it's quite interesting that what you're talking about, which is a process that is part of a very high level of development, can also be brought down and practiced in everyday life with the challenges we encounter.
Spot on, Chris, because you know, in terms of, I've been, you and I have been having some private discussions. That's exactly it. And a friend of mine, my best man at my wedding, he said to me years ago, "What you resist persists."
Yeah.
So you're right. And in the Initiate series by Cyril Scott, he also emphasizes focus on the higher and the lower will fall away naturally. I think that came up a couple of weeks ago on one of our slides. So yeah, but in doing that, like as Gurdjieff said, we hold on to our suffering. I know I do sometimes, a lot of the time, I'm getting over that, but you know what I mean? It's like that maintains our ego. So, and there's that, remember the story about the priest and the prostitute who lived across the road? I told you about that. Basically, the priest was observing the prostitute. She was observing him. She was saying, "Oh, what a wonderful fellow he is. He's praying to God every day, helping all those people." He was looking across the road going, "Oh, what that sinner, that woman, she's evil, blah, blah, blah." So when it came to heaven, and they died and they went to heaven, God let in the prostitute, no sweat. And the priest came up and he said, "No way you're not going in here." He goes, "My Lord, but I did your work. I was a priest." Yeah. And he says, "Yeah, but what did you fill your days with? All these bad thoughts about that woman across the road, So you are, you've got to focus on the positive and the negative will fall away. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thanks, Chris, for the reminder. Wow, here's everyone. Here's old Blake. He's been out and about. Haven't seen him for a while. Hey, Blake. Oh, Blake's asking for a cup of tea. Yeah, team, it's been great. So that's essentially 7 weeks of self-transformation. I don't know if I've transformed. I hope I have to some degree. So next week, we're going to have a summary. We'll sum up. And I've got a lot of notes, which I've got in the handouts for next week. So that's good. And I'll have them up online as well. So I will close the 7th session on Bhakti Yoga.